Going to record.
Welcome, welcome everyone. My name is Bita. I use she and her pronouns, and I will be moderating today's event. Welcome. I work at the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition on our National Dialogues project. And we'll start today's event with a land acknowledgement. Welcome to all our international guests as well. And just a little explanation of why we do land acknowledgements. So this has been borrowed from the U of T website, that a land acknowledgement is to recognize the unique and enduring relationship between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. Now, for me, a land acknowledgement is to honor the land and honor its ancestors, to recognize the ongoing impacts of colonization, and to remember my responsibilities as a settler. And I'm coming to you from Scarborough, the east end of Toronto, land belonging to the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples. And I encourage folks to submit in the chat an introduction and a land acknowledgement as well. Let us know where you're coming from. Okay, so today's stimulus event is a collaboration between the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition and the Canadian Association of People Who Use Drugs. And it's called Connecting with Connect, which I think is a great name. We have some planning committee members who are helping out, and they'll just give us a wave. I'll introduce them. We have Nabila from the Dr. Peter Center, who will be helping out with our chat. We have Alexandra doing simultaneous French-English oral interpretation. We have myself. I'll be moderating and managing the Q&A, and that will be with support from Olivia Mancini, a CDPC practicum student. And we have Marcy Reed from CAPUD doing background tech. And just to let everyone know, we have about just under 100 people registered for this event, which is great. Hello, hello, welcome. And some housekeeping items. We'll be using the hashtag StimulusConnect. So if you want to tweet, feel free to tweet away. We like Twitter fingers here. And questions are very welcome. You can place them in the chat either in French or English. Later on in the event, you can also have the opportunity to ask your question in person, so don't be shy, that is welcome. You can upvote questions in the Q&A. So if you just press, I believe it's on the Q&A button at the bottom, and you'll see all the different questions, and you can give a little thumbs up to any question that you want to see asked. This event is being recorded and will be available on the Stimulus website in the future. And we are live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook land. If you're having problems with your sound going in and out, turn off the oral interpretation when you do not need it. And you can access interpretation by using the globe button at the bottom of your screen. If anyone needs any tech support during the event, please feel free to use the chat function and we will get you sorted or do our best effort. And today we have folks joining us from Nigeria, Spain, and the United States. Welcome, eh? We have 13 different groups present today as well, representing people who use drugs. Thank you for your work. Thank you for joining us. And now I will introduce our panelists. Anne-Marie Houston, could you start us off, please?
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie. I use she, her pronouns. I work for the Canadian Association of People Who Use Drugs. I'm the program coordinator here. I work with, we work in a partnership with the CDPC, and I work on the stimulus program, which we're doing today. And I work quite a bit with Shay and also with Bita on the Getting to Tomorrow program. So I do a lot of work with the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition. I am a visitor in Mi'kma'ki, which is the land, unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And now introducing Natasha Twinard.
The darn mute had me. I couldn't find it. I have too many windows open. Yeah, so I'm Natasha Twinard, and I am the executive director of the Canadian Drug Policy Canadian Association of People Who Use Drugs. I work with them so much I've confused my own role at this point, Donald. But we work in collaboration with CDPC on stimulus and a number of other initiatives. And yeah, so I'm happy to be here today with everybody and connecting with Connect, I guess is what it is. You guys are going to get to know some crazy shit about us. So anyway, but I come today as well from the land of Mi'kma'ki, which is the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also like to recognize and respect the contributions and legacies of the African Nova Scotian community here. And there's over 50 African Nova Scotian communities here that are thriving and doing very well, and very proud to live in Nova Scotia and live within Mi'kma'ki and also have such a strong African Nova Scotian community.
Thank you, Natasha. Over to Donald McPherson.
Thank you, Beta. Donald McPherson. I'm the director of the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition. I'm speaking to you from the ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, on the west coast of what is called Canada. And we do these land acknowledgements, as Beta was saying, to refresh, remind us, and refresh our commitment to the grindingly slow and needs to be accelerated process of reconciling and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples whose lands we are on. I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking forward to our partnership with CAPUD is like a roller coaster. We celebrate the small victories, which is what we do in this movement. We rarely get a big one, but we celebrate the small ones. We laugh together, we cry together, we weep together, and we strategize together. And it's been a very fruitful and rewarding partnership we've had with CAPUD over the last few years, and really look forward to where we can take it. And it's fabulous that there are so many organizations of people who use drugs attending today, and often attending the Stimulus Connects, depending on the topics. So real pleasure to be here, and I'd like to welcome everybody from outside of Canada. We're honored that you would come in whatever time zone you are, and thank you, and we look forward to the meeting.
Thank you, Donald.
You did much better opening than I did. Sorry, at least you said the right organization.
Lines are all blurry. And
Over to Shay.
Hi, everybody. I join you as a unwelcome settler on the traditional land belonging to the Tsuut'ina, Blackfoot, Métis, and Sioux people. It is now colonially called rural Red Deer County, and we got about half a foot of snow 2 days ago, and it's slowly melting. So I'm you know, Mother Nature, and I need to have a chat about snow removal, basically. I use she, her pronouns. I swear too much. I am the Stimulus staff currently at the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition. I work collaboratively with Anne-Marie, Donald, and Natasha. And I have you probably have noticed this, I have 2 screens, and I'm managing a little background stuff despite also being on this panel. So I'm listening, but mostly through this ear and this side of my face. I'm excited to sort of start us off with a little bit of history of the stimulus program. And Donald and Natasha and Marie jump in if I've missed anything. Back in the olden days, there was provincial harm reduction conferences, and Alberta was renowned for holding them. They were at one point were annual and then went every 2 years. There were 13 Alberta harm reduction conferences. And during that time, I was working in community-based organizations and was involved because it was a collaborative planning and implementing of those provincial harm reduction conferences. That last few almost became the de facto harm reduction conference, harm reduction and drug policy conference, because there was no national. And so got it into our minds, and the nationals were like, we need to do this. Let's hold a national. And so a group of folks came together in 2017, late 2016, early 2017, and we're like, yeah, no, we can do this. But let's remember that the Albertans have been doing this. So let's work with them, and maybe we'll host it for the first time in Alberta. Because it'll be a bit easier for us nationals who haven't done the day-to-day of planning and implementing a conference, and it'll be good. It turned out that at that time, I thought I had left the harm reduction and drug policy sector. This was, of course, the overdoses were crazy big, lots of really toxic drugs happening in Western Canada, and so many people already dying in 2017. We ended up planning the Stimulus 2018 conference called Drugs Policy and Practice in Canada. Still now, we were like, what, 4 years later, 3.5 years later, we still hear that people really loved that conference. It might have had to do with the donuts. It might have had to do with just being able to all hang out with each other at the same time in the same place with people who really understood drug policy and harm reduction. Of course, people who use drugs are experts in this area and in their lives. And so a conference which worked to try and really hold people who use drugs in leadership roles was the hope, was the plan. It was certainly a step to doing that really well. I know we can do better next time. And certainly go from there. So we then had the conference and everything was good. It was one of those like, hey Shay, do you have time to do this? And I was all like, yeah, I'll do that in addition to my full-time job. And we really, as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, we started to just hire people. So I ended up with like 2 coworkers who are based in Red Deer. Who, luckily one was bilingual, and we moved forward. We had it up pulling in, I think at the end of the last month, I think we had 6 staff who were doing this off the side of their desks with their full-time jobs. Marlis Taylor was a key engineer of that work. Marlis Taylor and Streetworks. She continues to be the history of the event, although often she'll say, my brain might know it, hers might not. I don't know. Donald, of course, was also involved in the planning and implementing of the 2018 conference. Natasha is the executive director of CAPUD at that time, which wasn't Natasha, was involved. But I have a really great picture of Natasha and Frank at the conference in 2018. Frank is the board chair for CAPUD. And so it was like, really like, wow, this is amazing. We were planning to have a 2020 conference. Yep. Donald, do you want to jump in? Do you want to talk about some of that?
Oh, I could say a couple of words. And I think what we learned at the 2018 conference, being national, it was very well attended. There were 850 people. There was a very large contingent of people who use drugs, maybe a third of the attendees. And I think there was it was so powerful that, one of the powerful events that happened was an impromptu, very large healing circle that took place among other other impromptu events. And it was 2018, so people were pretty traumatized by the acceleration in the deaths from in the recent years, 2014, 15, 16, 17, the deaths just kept rising. So we really noted that, wow, this is a community conference. It's a conference for people to come and reconnect, rejuvenate, heal with each other. And things have gotten worse since 2018 in terms of the drug toxicity crisis in this country. And we were meant to have it in 2020, but like everyone else in the world, we had to cancel an in-person conference because of COVID, and now are looking at staging it again in fall of 2023, when surely to God COVID will be in the rearview mirror by then. But it's a very tragic time in the country. It's so the conference will be cognizant of the healing and trauma and loss that people have experienced, and we want to use that space as well as we can to be together and to plan next steps in a movement to change drug policy in Canada.
We, I don't know if you remember this, Natasha, but we went and did a go-see at in spring, in late February 2019. So we were going to have this event in Gatineau. And so Natasha, Donald, and I, I think that's up until recently, still the last time we saw each other in real time, the three of us. We actually went and checked out the space and did this whole thing. And I remember in that meeting, Natasha was like, I think I have it. You had a C&D meeting? Did you have a Vienna meeting? And you were trying to figure out whether or not to go because there was this weird flu thing going around.
Yeah. COVID was emerging upon us, and I was like, oh shit, should I really go? Especially while Italy had that big breakout. But yeah, it was you know what I remember about that most is we couldn't find the front door to the entrance of the do you remember that? And then finally I figured out there were some stickers on the floor to the Palais de Congrès, and I was like, oh, isn't that great? Like, and we tried to follow stickers, we still couldn't find our way in. But the ironic thing is when COVID hit us, there were stickers everywhere. We learned how to follow stickers. So that's just the ironic thing is after seeing all those stickers, I didn't mean to cut you off, Shay.
No, that's just it. I actually, yeah, it's like this brilliance of like, do people know how to follow stickers to get to places on floors? And then we're all like, well, you know, we'll use large branding and they'll learn because
we were gonna have a circus. We were gonna have
exactly. We're gonna have circus performers to help people find the entrances. The Palais de Congrès in which I know, Henry, I did not pronounce that correctly. Sorry, Alexandra, for killing those words. But it's set up within a bunch of other buildings, and so you actually have to go in through another other building entrances, basically. 2020 didn't happen. We did plan to have 2022 as well, which of course has been postponed, as Donald mentioned. One of the things we were thinking about in prep for the 2020 conference was, this was pre-Anne-Marie time as well, Donald and I were like, what should we do in the off year? We should do something like that's helpful to the smaller communities, because the urban communities, the big urban communities are, again, there's lots of people who work in harm reduction and drug policy there. There's lots of cool stuff happening the larger the community is, but the smaller communities, there might be just one person working in Tabor, Alberta, and or you know, Kitimat, BC, and they are of course quite isolated. So we had plans for off conference years to hold different types of events and different meetings and pieces that were more regional, much more local, and much more accessible for people to get to compared to a national conference. Little did we know that with COVID, that implementation was going to actually be part of the pivoting of this program away from a in-person conference to an online environment, and we continue to pivot as we go. So excited about today because we have some questions for you folks in the room, and we'll share a bit more information. And I'm actually going to leave sort of the background stuff and hand over to Anne-Marie, who has some amazing yummy data.
Data, we want some fun data. Yeah, so the online connects have gone phenomenal. Like they're phenomenal. They're going amazing. So since April of 2022, we have held 21 events, 5 stimulus webinars, and 16 stimulus connects. Now we have data on 19 of these events because you have to forgive us. The early days, we were learning and we weren't exactly, getting the data like we are now. So for 19 of these events, we had 2,539 people attend our events. So that's an average of about 134 people per event, which I think is amazing. For the 2-hour recordings that we have on our YouTube channel, there has been 2,754 views, which is super cool also. So we've only had to cancel one connect. There's only been one connect canceled. And that connect, it's not going to be, it's not something that we'll ever do online. That's a conversation that if, Natasha or Shay, that's something that they could speak to, but it's not a conversation that would be held online. So technically today would be, if we hadn't canceled that connect, we would be on connect number 19 rather than connect number 18, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. So there's a little bit of online stimulus data for you.
I love that you shared that because that's crazy big numbers. I just want to say this would be Stimulus Connect 18, which it is. So this is Stimulus Connect 18, and we've implemented 16 as of yesterday and 17 as of today. It's 2 years of data. That's crazy, right? 21 events. I felt like some months when we weren't having them, like August, because we took a month off, that we were slackers. But 21 and 24, I don't know. What do you think? Natasha, do you want to talk about the canceled one or that data?
Sure, I can talk about the canceled one. We're going to talk about people like that sell drugs or drug sellers, or and felt it was kind of risky for the people that may be coming forward, and had decided in best interest that perhaps that was an in-person conversation. Like, at the conference is what I was thinking when we thought we were still having the conference. It's sort of like drop your technology in the basket when you walk in the room, so that everybody feels safe in that space, or has like a place they can talk when they don't feel like they're being burdened to over public, because we know lots of people come to these events, and we by no means want anybody to be harmed in their individual stories, whether it's present, past, or even future. We want to make sure that everybody is there and is able to share and know that there's not going to be any repercussions. And I think I was actually talking to Brittany. I was like, yeah, I was Brittany from Health Canada. I was like, yeah, I had to put the ci-bas on that. Like, sorry. And Health Canada was actually looking really forward to this one. But it was more to not to be paternalistic to the individuals that were coming. It was just more about, we had women that were going to present that have children, and women that were Indigenous and Black. And we know already within drug policy, those individuals are harmed the worst within drug policy, over criminalized, over surveillance. And so yeah, I know Shay was like probably thrown for a loop when I was like, ci-bas, because I was just so worried about, our members that were going to be that public about something. And so I think it is something that the public needs to hear, but probably in a space that's not so public that it doesn't have long-term impact or effects on them or their family or their children. Because I think when we think about child apprehension, we often think about, the families, the mothers or the fathers that are impacted, but the children are severely impacted as well. So it has a duality that lives with people for a long time. So I went all mama bear and was like, no, we can't do this. So we'll do it as stimulus. And unfortunately, we had to cancel stimulus. So, but it's coming, just not this year.
Thanks everyone for that. It's really cool to learn a bit about the evolution of stimulus and the numbers. Wow, I think it's so cool that so many people are hearing the good word, because there's a lot of propaganda out there that needs to be addressed. So thank you. Now, before we dig into our big Q&A session, I wanted to open it up to Donald to share a few more words, if there's anything you want to add to what's been said.
I guess the stimulus work that's happened to date, the conference in 2018, which I think we all feel was a pivotal event, and then whoa.
It's so Donald on a Zoom call. We're so very used to that sound. It's great.
Donald, you haven't known yet to put your phone on mute before we do these.
Yeah, I'm learning slowly. The conference was pivotal. The coming up with stimulus in between the conferences, which were not meant to be online, they were going to be in person, but they fit online format very well. And actually, we learned we could actually reach more people less expensively and get to places in the country that, Canada is a very big country, and there are lots of very isolated communities that have, very rip-roaring drug markets. So it's just the way it works. And as Shay was saying, the rural and remote locations are often left out of many of the discussions that take place and conferences that take place. So the stimulus conference in person was also, we were trying to make a big effort to bring people from all regions of the country. So I think going forward, stimulus is a we see it as a very integral community building, capacity building, field harm reduction development sort of program, bringing people together from all communities, kinds of communities in the country. The knowledge sharing around the drug market and the toxicity and all of that stuff, and the drug testing, and it's just been the connectivity at that level has been amazing, and there's so much more to do. So going forward, I think we're building a very strong cohesive platform from which to inform policy. We're a Canadian Drug Policy Coalition is a policy advocacy organization, and we're committed to changing Canada's drug policy to one that is much more humane and based on evidence that's before us. So I think the potential in building upon the work we've done thus far over the next year, taking some of that work and energy to Ottawa in the fall of 2023. We know, we can't guarantee what government's going to be in place, but the Liberal government and the NDP have made an agreement. It looks like they will be in place at that time. So we sort of know who we're dealing with. All governments have been bad, slow on this drug toxicity crisis. We also know that drug policy changes primarily from the ground up. If you look around the world, who has made where the innovation come from? It's come from people who use drugs. It's come from frontline harm reduction people trying to figure out how to do this work in very oppressive environments. And stimulus creates a connectivity and a sort of base of people with all of that information at the ground level. Like, here is what is actually happening in this community, and here is what will work to help people in this community. So I really think we can capture a lot of that in very, very clear, articulate language for our advocacy work in provincial capitals and at Ottawa. So that's sort of, you know, my vision of this, taking this advocacy work to the next step and really demonstrating the changes that need to take place for us to save lives and create healthier, safer communities.
Thank you so much, Donald. Really appreciate that perspective. Over to Natasha, if there's anything that you want to add.
Well, I got lots of things I want to add, but I don't want to take everybody's time. This has been an amazing collaboration. I think Donald summed it up really well in the beginning. Like, we laughed together, we cried together, we pulled our hair out together. Like, we've been quite the team. That, you know, even through any issues, we worked through them at all times. And this is one, it's been an amazing collaboration. And so, as also Shay was speaking to, and Donald, like Stimulus 2018, as somebody, like our former executive director was involved with some of that planning at that time. But as a person who uses drugs and going to Stimulus 2018, it, like, I'll still say to this day, it was the most epic conference that I'd ever gone to. I met so many like-minded people that I'm still friends with today. And there's this whole community of us that are now united throughout the country that perhaps might not have been if we didn't get to go there and meet. And so, and even like we had meetings with Health Canada adjacent to those. And so we made lots of different collaborations and new friendships and long-lasting friendships that I cherish to today. And I mean, I think it was, in my opinion, it was very innovative. It was one of the most innovative, or the most innovative conference I've ever been to. Like, the predominance of people who use drugs there specifically, because generally when I go to a harm reduction conference, there's like all professionals, and you'll have scientists and researchers, and, you know, and there was those too, but not like, I think it probably shocked people there that there was as many as people who use drugs there as there was, like, at some point. But it was such an amazing community, and it ignited all of us to keep going at a time when we were all, you know, very down, and the overdose crisis was just escalating. We were losing people, and it brought our community Canada-wide together to advocate together. I think it made our membership stronger as well, right? Like through CAPUD, making those relationships. So yeah, and the other thing I wanted to speak to is we were going to do a stimulus meet earlier this year, and we actually couldn't like do the full stimulus meet, CAPUD meet, but Shay came with us. And I just wanted, can I show a picture? Can I share my screen? Can I share my
scared,
screen?
but you can.
You guys have
Julie and
to
I are
see this.
scared, but
This is the most epic picture ever. So this was like a CAPUD meet. And so we went out, Jason McCurdy took us out to Primal Pasta. And so we were outside. So he gave us these like bandanas. And so we all looked like Karate Kids. So I said, we have to have this picture of Karate Kid picture. And this random guy right here in the front, we'd never met before. He just saw us and he just like came out and he was like, oh, he went down and he was like, I'm going to show you how karate really is. Like, it was like the best picture. I think we can see all of us laughing our heads off. And there was even comments like Patrick, like, who knew he was the real ninja of the group anyway? But I just wanted to show that because I think it speaks to the collaboration that we have with that we've made and we hold with agencies across this country. And I'll stop embarrassing people now, but I do have another picture I will show you later on of Patrick and I and Anne-Marie I think it was Matt, no, we were in the smoking room, like, we'd never been in an inhalation site before. And so I was just like, oh my God, we gotta get some pipes. We gotta go into this smoking room and like hypothetically like show off the smoking room. And so I have a really good picture. And Patrick McDougall from the Dr. Peter Center came in with us too. And I was like, this is going to be my Facebook profile picture forever, that I had him come in with the meth pipe. No, I think he had a crack pipe. Him and I had crack pipes, and Anne Marie and I think Matt had the meth pipes. And I was like, this is like the most epic thing ever, like the relationships that we've made through stimulus and, you know, the connects, and just it's just been an amazing ride this far. And just like that picture was like, well, the one I just showed you was pretty epic, because if a stranger jumps in and tries to really show you how to do karate gets tuned right down. I was like, this is forever ingrained in my mind. So later when I talk, I'll let other people talk. I'll show you the other picture of us with the pipes in the smoking room.
This is amazing. I'm so glad I was asked to moderate this one. It's great. What a deep squat of that random stranger. I just couldn't help but notice. All right. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, since starting at the CDPC over a year and a half ago, I just heard such amazing things about the 2018 conference, and it sounds like it was something really special. I did hear about the donuts as well. And I look forward to being there in 2023 in Ottawa and getting to meet a lot of you fantastic folks I haven't met in the real 3D world. So that'll be really special. Okay, now to the questions. I'm excited.
I missed the donuts.
Pardon me?
I missed the donuts.
Miss the donuts.
Still upset about that.
Who doesn't like a good donut? My first question for you all is, what is your favorite drug and why? How about starting with Donald, since you're unmuted?
Oh, my favorite drug is wine. And why? Because there's an infinite variety to explore, even within my price range.
What kind of wine?
There's cheap wine everywhere. Yeah, and it's just the whole package. Sunshine in a bottle, as one winery calls it. And yeah, it's the wine. It's the drug I relax with.
Thank you. Red or white? Follow-up question.
Both.
Both? Okay. Okay, interesting. I'd like to call on Shay next.
Well, so I'm going to answer this in two parts because I'm unruly. My favorite drug is chocolate, and none of that Bernard Callebaut fancy chocolate. If you can't buy it at a gas station, I won't like it. It's an everyday thing, so that's a problem. The most important drug for me is actually like my health related, like my depression medications, because when those don't work, or if I don't have health coverage, shit is gonna go down and I probably won't be able to work. So I'm just happy and lucky that those drugs are legally regulated. Super white privileged woman here. I absolutely am lucky that those are regulated. I'm not gonna hand off because I'm not moderating this. See, Beta, I gave you strict instructions to not let me talk.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you, Shay, for that. I too am a sucker for chocolate. Over to Anne Marie.
All right. Yeah, who isn't a sucker for chocolate? We just had Easter. The amount of chocolate I have eaten in the past like 4 days is absolutely disgusting. Mushrooms. Mushrooms are my favorite drug. Mushrooms, yeah, they can help you relax. They can help you forget the day. They can help you see a beautiful sunrise when it's a hurricane outside, if need be, right? Yeah, mushrooms are definitely my thing. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, that's my favorite drug.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Natasha, how about you?
I'll be very honest, and it might be controversial. The only drug that wasn't my favorite drug was cannabis. So every other drug in my life has been a favorite drug. So yeah, you know, I like mushrooms. I love cocaine. I like methamphetamine, probably a little bit too much. And I had to move away from London, Ontario, because I probably would have died there, like in a methamphetamine like state. Like, no, but I mean, I don't think I've ever met a drug that I didn't like other than cannabis, because, you know, when you think about the craziest person that goes into paranoia ever in your life, that's me off of one puff of cannabis. I'm like doing army rolls across the floor. The cops are coming, the cops are coming. And I'm like trying to hide. And it's legal. But I wouldn't even do it when it was legal. It was like before then. I was like, oh no, I would still think like the man was coming. I could hear a siren. So that is a drug I absolutely, so I'm telling you my favorite drugs, but also my least favorite drugs, and that is cannabis. And I don't even like to be in a room smoke when somebody's smoking it, because I'm scared to death. The smoke is going to get me high. Like I'll freak right out. So pretty much every drug that I've ever done. Oh, acid's really good too. I used to love some LSD back when I was young. Like when I was like 14 or 15, you could buy like 5 hits of acid for like $20. And like me and my girlfriend would just get high and like trip out all night. Like I loved it because you'd laugh all night. So yeah, I'm a connoisseur of all drugs but cannabis.
Thank you. Thanks, Natasha. It's been really cool hearing about everyone's favorite. Shay has advised me I can answer which questions I want to. So I was thinking about it, and definitely cannabis, because that is the one I use the most often. It helps me literally stop and smell the roses. Like, I know my colleagues probably think I'm pretty chilled out, and it's because of the cannabis. And yeah.
You know, but you know what, Rita? You know what my son used to tell me? He said, Mom, it'll go away. You just have to get through the paranoia. And I was like, I don't want to have to go through paranoia to get to the chill side. So I'm glad you've always gotten the chill side, because the paranoia is like next level.
Gotta stay away from the kush. Stay away from the kush if you've got paranoia issues.
Oh shit, yes.
But yes, I feel like every drug has something so special to offer. Like, I also love mushrooms. Acid is great. Cocaine is great. Taken safely and with full consent. I think these can be really powerful medicines. Okay, thanks everyone.
Do you mind if I just respond quickly? Because I think Alexandra, I see her there in the chat, and Nathan too. Like, no one likes coffee. I love coffee. Shit, I couldn't make it through a day without coffee. And also, I also loved heroin as well. So like, no joke there. Opioids were one of my favorites. So shit, I was on them for many years. I had a really good relationship with them. Then kind of went a little bit bad at the end because I was on treatment for a long time. But now I'm at a place where I can tell you I still love opioids. I just don't do them. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries at all. This is awesome and really informal. So if people have things they want to add, and feel free to jump in.
Well, it's funny, Viti, when you said favorite drug, I immediately went to the drug I use a lot. so which of course coffee is probably trumps wine in terms of volume. But what is, and so I grew up in this, late 60s, 70s, sort of experimenting with all sorts of different drugs. So if the question was how do you explore consciousness? It wouldn't be red wine.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, so in my younger days, yeah, LSD and
LSD is the best, Donald. It's the best.
Yeah, it can be a ride. And in later years, ayahuasca, in terms of exploring, like intentionally. The trouble with my early days is it was just gobbling things down, and like we didn't set intentions and really do it in a conscious way. It was more of a trippy way. But in ayahuasca context, there's way more thought that goes into it. So if I have any regrets about how I've used drugs in the past, is that I didn't use them with those intentions of exploring my consciousness. It was more like well, let's see what happens. So
Tripping out, you mean, basically, wanted to go on a trip.
young, and you just
Yeah, shit, we all do it when we're young. At least in my lifetime, everybody I knew did it when they were young. So I shouldn't speak for everybody. I just thought it was a normal thing.
Yeah, I love what's coming up as far as intention and how it's used, and thinking about what does favorite mean versus like consistency of use, or perhaps maybe a more isolated, monumental kind of experience. So it's really interesting to think about. Yeah, I'm loving what's happening in the chat too. Feel free to keep using the chat. Really, really great to hear about all of your experiences and perspectives.
oh,
You did.
MDA.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Charlene mentioned MDA. Yes, MDA. My God, not MDMA, MDA.
Right.
We're aging ourselves, Charlene.
I love Charlene. I'm so happy she's here. Now, can I share my screen one more time? Like, I just want to show this picture, right? So that we can see it. This is us in the smoking room. Me and Patrick with crack pipes, and Matt and Emery with meth pipes. And I said, hypothetically, we were trying out the smoking room, but who knows? Many of us might have been trying out the smoking room. This was just the picture that we put forward.
Don't mess with these drug policy folks.
Yeah, we had a great time there. It was so amazing, and I was so happy. Like Shay, when the last picture I showed, like when the guy came out, like she was like her face was so like originally like shocked, like like I didn't know this guy was coming out. But anyway, I hate to keep bragging about that, but it was like a CAPUD CDPC collaboration, and I think it was epic. I think we had a great time. We made great relationships. Jason McCurdy and Kayla, they were amazing. So can't wait to go back and meet with them.
Well, and shout out to Elizabeth Plishka. So Elizabeth's actually hanging out with us today, and she has taken over Prairie HR's social media. And I'm pretty sure she's the one who had the epic April Fool's Day tweet. But it also, so it did what it was purpose for, which is make some money and a little bit of civil disobedience, which I am all there for. So sorry, go ahead, Ida.
I have okay, I've always wondered this about people in general, so I'm going to ask all of you, do you put your socks on first or your pants on first? You know, is it pants socks or socks pants? Do you have an order? Who would like to go first?
I'm gonna go first. So the ritual is pants first, then I take the socks to my boot room. Then I put the lotion on the feet, kind of like the creepy way, put the lotion on the feet, and I put the socks on, and then I have to put on shoes or slippers because it's quite cold in my office because it's not a heated part of my house. And so it's entirely ritualized, and it's okay to judge me. Insert judgment right there.
I loved that ritual. Thank you, Shay.
I always put my pants on first. I don't know why. I don't know. And then my socks go afterwards. I actually, Shay, I do the lotion thing too, but I don't go to my shoe room or wherever you fucking gotta do it. I just I do it in my bedroom. I put my pants on, I put my lotion on, and then I put my socks on, and then I go to wherever I gotta go to put my shoes on. But that is an interesting fact I didn't know about you. I'm gonna have to remember that one.
Thanks, Natasha. Anne-Marie, do you want to go next?
Yeah, if I'm wearing long socks, then I put them on first because I hate rolling my pant legs up. But if I'm going like snowboarding or something and I need my socks above my pants, obviously I'll put them. Like, it really depends what I'm doing. But in the winter time, because I walk to work in the snow, I do spend a lot of time with my socks above my pants. So I I put my pants on first and look like, Steve Urkel 3/4 of the winter. Natasha's seen it. It's quite entertaining.
That's amazing.
What, wait, I just have to ask, I was talking about the boob room in the chat. You're like, what's going on? Like,
Oh, I was talking
room?
about how I wear my socks above my pants in the winter time when I walk to work so the snow doesn't get in my pants.
No,
yeah,
Emery,
no, it's not what the
chat
chat
has
is.
evolved. It
The
has
chat is
Oh
like,
God.
yeah, I take my boobs to the boot room. And I was like, what are we talking about right now?
Boots and boobs to the boot room.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody thought I said boot room, I think, and somebody thought I said boob room.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, what, you
Oh.
do your bra in the boot room as well?
No.
Like, what's going on?
Bra, Donald, where do you put your bra on?
Reining it back in.
Uh,
Donald, socks or pants first?
Well, with apologies to Anne Marie, and I understand the long sock dilemma, I think someone naked in socks is obscene. So you basically got to do the pants first.
That's hilarious. I'm a staunch socks person, so that's
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay. You can call me obscene. It's okay. All right. Let's now for some serious stuff. What has the yeah, everyone get your serious faces on. What has the partnership between CDPC and CAPUD looked like over the past 5 years? And where do you want the collaboration to go in the next 5 years?
Well, I'll speak first. Donald has been one of my most favorite people and a mentor of all my life since I started in harm reduction. And I'm very proud of our collaboration. I think that, there's been hard times, every, partnership has hard times, but I think that we've challenged each other. And like, not just Donald and I, but our teams, we've challenged each other. We meet together. I mean, Donald will be the first person like, what the fuck? And I'll just text him like in the middle of the night. And like for me, it's the middle of the night, for him, it's early morning. I'm like, oh my God, he answered me. I didn't realize it's like 6 o'clock in the morning right now. And I'm probably waking him up. But where do I want to see it go? I love this collaboration. And so, yeah, sometimes it's like any collaboration. Sometimes people aren't always on the same wavelength, but we bring it back together and we talk it out. And we collaborate. And to me, that is one of the most impressive, because listen, I have other collaborations with other organizations, and I'm, or in past that have epically failed. But I think we all try to do our best for each other. And if we don't understand each other, we do our best to see each other's points of view, even if, shit's going wrong and like we're upset. We just like, let's pause, let's talk about it. I'd love to see us continue collaborating for 5 years and more. And I think I recently said that even one of our meetings, I was like, no, like you're stuck with us now. Like you're stuck with us. We're not going anywhere. I don't know if that's a threat or a promise, but Donald could speak to that.
Goes both ways. You're stuck with us.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I could add to what Natasha's saying, I think we have a very deep commitment to each organization, and we have had some hard discussions and things. I've learned a lot about communications. I've learned a lot about assumptions. I've learned a lot about keeping people in the loop, because when you don't, it's a problem. So I think there's a real honesty there, and I think we work to deepen that and express our concerns when we can. I think we have a good foundation of trust and respect, and I think it can be very hard work. We work in a precarious sort of situation with regard to funding. Both organizations have moments of precarious funding. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of stress. There's a ton of work just to keep the lights on sometimes. And the whole area itself is full of stress and trauma. And to sort of be the small group of civil society players, and that's not just CDPC and CAPUD, but the other organizations in the country. It's a relatively small group who have taken on a very large task of convincing, you know, our state actors to change a murderous drug policy. And you know, we're not there. The institutional inertia of governments and health care systems, policing systems, criminal justice systems, that's immense to take on. And that's what we're taking on. And we're trying to do it thoughtfully, intelligently, in partnership, engaging those institutions as much as we can, but it means we're under a lot of stress all of the time, and things can go south very quickly if we don't have a strong commitment to repair the mistakes we make, and listen to each other and learn from each other. And the one thing I said, I've never learned so much in my whole career as I have in working with CAPUD, and the work that CAPUD has done around best practices and safe supply. And from the very early days of CAPUD, has been an incredible gift to our society, really, and helping people really understand the complexity of what people who use drugs deal with day in and day out. So.
Thank you, Donald. And you know what? It's like I always say, like, I just want to give you a big hug right now, but too far away, so virtual hug. But I agree with you. But you know, I always have this saying, like, I don't do this with, well, you know, I have done with CDPC all the time, Telehealth Canada. I think even when we were in the meeting with the minister, I was like, so I'm a little bit prickly at times. So like, you know, like that's my nice way. Sometimes things hit me wrong and like I gotta work them out. But you know, and I love how you guys like sometimes accept my prickliness. Like, you know, not sometimes, but maybe, you know, more than I'd like to admit. No, I'm just joking. But I did say, I saw it, what is it, Nathaniel, he's in there, he's like, as long as you aren't sleeping with them. And I was like, what the hell is that? What is he doing?
That question was really provocative.
I was like, what does he mean? Like in a partnership? Like, I just wanted to engage on that because I was like sort of out of the loop.
Talking about socks. Talking about
the socks, as long as you're not sleeping with socks. I was like, wait, this is coming like
with socks.
Yeah, but I thought it was about partnerships, and I was like, yeah, that's way too fucked up. Like, no, partnerships should not be sleeping together. Thanks, Nate, and thank you, Emery, for explaining that.
Hey, Alex just said that we're talking too fast.
Oh, sorry, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you for
yes,
that.
I do talk fast.
Anne-Marie, would you like to comment on the partnership between CAPUD and CDPC and what you might want to see in the future?
I want to see it stay exactly the same forever and ever and ever and ever. I love it. I think that like, so I've only been like, I came in about 10 months ago. I'm just going, it'll be a year in June, and like I love it, and watching how we all work together as a group, and you know, we're constantly learning from each other, and we do have moments where it's, you know, like, well, I don't like Shay today, and I don't like Anne-Marie today, and I don't want to talk Natasha, or right, like, or it's the other way around, and it's we have our moments and our times, and I'm like, I don't want to do this, and whatever, but the next day we, you know, we're over it and we love each other again, and off we go doing our thing. So it's I don't know, I guess in my eyes it's kind of more than just a partnership. It's kind of like that family that I really never had. So I just want it to stay like this. That's all.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. My heart, it's in there, it's feeling things. Shay, would you like to add some of your insight to that question?
I would just add.
Wait, she's gonna talk shit about me. No, I'm just joking.
I only talk shit about you with you, Natasha. This is the rule. part of it's actually just the accountability of the relationships between the two organizations, right? So when CDPC fucks up, we want people to call us in about that. Ultimately, not calling us out, but actually, like, you know, call us in. And the brilliance is that the relationship has actually taught us a lot. Donald has said this. Sometimes people see it differently. I will say, Anne-Marie, I know this is a terrible thing, but I think it's going to be good. We are adding an additional staff to the stimulus team. So things are going to change again. The good news is that we'll have some more capacity. The bad news is that change bad, right? It's like we have to figure out, Anne-Marie and I are going to have to give up some of the work we want to do, but don't have time to do, right? And so that's exciting.
Oh,
And we'll
that's
have,
gonna be that's gonna be different. Like, and you literally said it, Jay, like give up some of the work that we don't want to give up, but we don't have time to do. And that, you know, like Anne-Marie's staying at the office late and not telling Natasha, or working on the weekend saying, Shay, if you see this email, it is me. And right, like, yeah, it's definitely going to be different. Change is hard. And I don't know, I'm a good addict. I don't like change.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Alexandra as well, because she was one of the co-founders of CAPUD. She was one of our original signing co-founders. And so I'm really proud that she's here with us today, because I think that that's part of a big part of our history, because we're talking about other people here, but shout out to Alexandra, because you're amazing and you've been here with us since the beginning.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, so a question now from our audience. I have heard a few people mention the importance of Black and Indigenous inclusion, and so I'm curious about how current members of CAPUD and CDPC and folks on this panel are working to include more Indigenous and Black drug users in places of leadership, organizing, and national discussions. Great question. Would anyone like
Good
to
one.
start off?
Natasha.
Well, of course, he'd put me under fire. No, listen, I think we have I'm proud to say that our board is diverse, and I try at all times to make sure that I'm not speaking for individuals or their experiences, but bringing their issues forward to give them a platform to speak on. I think that's very important. Similar to, like, we just met with the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Minister Carol Bennett. And so my first thing was, like, I was offered time to speak, and I was like, no, I'd rather have our President Frank speak. Because, you know, when he's not my presence, or if there's not anybody there of color that's in the present, I feel like I have a duty as a representative of CAPUD to not speak to their issues, but to make them informed of the issues that are happening within those communities, and they need to engage those communities. So I certainly don't want to speak for anybody. However, I do want to make sure that those issues are prominent and front and center within our movement, because it's integral to who we are as the Canadian Association of People Who Use Drugs. We're multifaceted, cultural, you know, people, and by no means should I be the only one sitting at a table to speak for all of us. And I think Donald can attest for that, because I've left other tables in his presence when there's not been other people there to speak about their issues. Not one of us should ever show up anywhere. We should have not a variety, but we should have multiple people at all times. And I think it goes back to peerology, even though that's outdated now. There should always be at least two people who use drugs at a table. Our newer document, How to Be in the Room, there should be at very least two people there. But you also need to have other cultural, and it can't be, because what happens is with a lot of policymakers or organizations, they call on people that speak to or speak the way they like, or like they show up when they want, and they're friendly and they're nice, and they're, you know, that's not always the people you need to talk to. You need to be actually speaking to the people that are, you know, right now facing some of the worst drug policy experiences that one could have, being incarcerated. And so by no means do I want to ever speak for somebody, but I feel it is one of my utmost duties as the executive director of this organization to make sure I bring forward Indigenous individuals and ACB individuals. And so I'll kick it off to Donald, Shay, or whoever, because I love how Anne-Marie like just threw me like, yeah, Natasha, you go. But she knows, like, I'm always on my, like, I got my violin going all the time. Like, listen to me. People of color need to be here and speak for themselves. And I get really fucking mad if that doesn't happen, because it's easy to invite me. You know, and that's the sad part. It's really easy to invite me because I'm an executive director. I show up. But you don't need to just hear from me. You need to hear from the people right now. Not that I haven't experienced harm, but you need to hear from the people right now that are facing some of the most worst racial disparities, being over criminalized, over surveillance, like all the things that happen. I can try and champion that voice, but it shouldn't be me that has to do it. And governments and people that want us to sit at tables need to recognize whether they like the voice that's coming forward or not, because it doesn't align with them or it makes them feel uncomfortable. They need to be uncomfortable and they need to think and be brave and courageous. And it's not even courageous, be rightful in the decisions that they make moving forward and ensuring that they have individuals of color sitting at the table.
Thanks, Natasha. Thank you for that. Really powerful.
From the CDPC point of view, that's a very important question. I would say that we are in process. We're exploring how to best engage Indigenous partners. We have an Indigenous research project where we're partnering with Thunderbird Partnership Foundation, and we're and BETA has been very integral to some of this work in terms of looking at the justice, equity, diversity, inclusion area, and keeping us on track, moving towards understanding how best to engage Indigenous nations. And we've prioritized hiring non-white staff in our most recent hiring round, which again is in process at the moment. And I think as director, if there's one area that I've been remiss in is, and we're in process of a governance review of CDPC at this time, because our steering committee originally had 15 spots. We have not replaced some of those spots, so it's a smaller group of people who are trying to figure out how to address that question too. So we're going through a governance review at CDPC, looking at how best the kind of skill sets we want on our steering committee. We have a national steering committee, and not that it's representative of all regions of the country, but it's more representative of all people who live in Canada. So I would say that's a very good question for us, and it's one we're right in the middle of it. And we are not as diverse as we have some level of diversity in our staff, and we are not as diverse as we want to be.
Thank you, Donald. Thanks for being so frank and honest. It's appreciated. Shay.
One of the standards we do related to Stimulus Connect, which might actually lead us to another question here, but is actually when we're looking for panelists. And I know Anne-Marie and I talked about, like, we should talk about how we look for panelists, because we have some things. So first, Stimulus is looking at making sure that people who use drugs are always on every panel. We also have rules like not only people from Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, which I call MTV. We want people from big communities and small communities. We want more than 2 genders, if possible, on the committee. We must have somebody who speaks French. We need to make sure we're engaging all of Quebec. I'm missing some, Anne-Marie. We try and have a differing points of view, so they're not all people who've parented, for example, if it's about parenting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we try to always have more than just the two genders. We try to have people from all nationalities, all different walks of life. We try to always have one French speaking person. It doesn't have to be from Quebec, because like there are like Kapuskasing, Timmins, hers, like Northern Ontario's French. There's a French pocket in Manitoba, as well as Alberta and BC. So there's different French pockets. Yeah, different points of views. And then we're trying to have, like from one end of the scale to the other, it really is what it is. Like people whose thoughts align, but with different ideas. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, we're always looking for, we don't want a panel of just photocopied faces, right? So we're always looking for somebody new, and we do our very best not to have repeat faces on the panel, also to always be changing who's there and whose voices are being heard, because even if you put, say, myself and Marcy on a panel, and we would have different things to say, right? And even though we work in the same office and next to each other, so even if it's somebody from the same organization, but different people, we're just trying to change it up all the time to make sure that everybody's voices are heard from across the country. But yeah, small communities is really one big thing that Shay loves, is to bring people in from the smaller communities, which I think is wonderful.
If I have to hear rural and remote one more time, I'm like, check around. No, I agree with it too. That's a joke. But I will say, like, even working on other webinars that big institutions, like nobody that's here today, have said that it's tokenistic to look or to try and have that representation. And I say, no, it is not tokenistic. It is actually our duty as individuals to have those voices represented. By no means should we ever have just one point of view in any webinar, in any format, because it's one perspective. It's like, again, like what I was saying earlier, it's like taking me as one white woman as a drug user and putting me in a place that I can speak for everybody. I can't do that. I can't do that. That is not my experience. I can talk about being a gendered individual, having child apprehension happen, being a drug user, being criminalized, but I certainly can't speak to, being somebody that is racialized and what they experience. And I feel as national organizations, it's our utmost duty, this is just my opinion, I don't want to speak for CDPC, to ensure that at all times we're trying to highlight those voices and make sure that they're heard, because there's, like I said earlier, the go-tos, and that's not fucking okay for any government or organization to just pick somebody because, oh, they're easy, and they'll show up. Fuck that shit. You need to hear the real raw truth of what's happening in people's lives. And there is real shit that's happening, especially with criminalization. And we have no safe inhalation consumption sites in Canada, but one in Saskatoon. And from what my board members have told me, as Black individuals, they predominantly inhale drugs, and there is no inhalation rooms except for one in Saskatoon. So where does that leave them? Still criminalized, still using in places that are unsafe. And so our drug policy in itself, whether we think we've moved light years ahead, we're still entrenched in racism. And if we don't bring those voices forward to help, policymakers and others, even the general public, understand that, we're doing a disservice to ourselves as national organizations.
So we're always looking for panelists. If you're interested in being a panelist, you don't have to you don't have to send it, but you can put it in the chat if you want, but we'll track it out of there. But you can direct message Anne Marie or I, Natasha, Donald, anybody on the Stimulus Connect social medias that comes to me. We'll keep that confidential. But the other piece we need to know is like, what are stuff you want to talk about? If you really know about this experience, we are often looking for a diverse panel of people from all of these different communities and places and spaces, but we also need to know if you actually know about safe supply or want safe supply and can't get it, because we're also looking for people with lived experience that's like different. For sure, we're also looking for professionals. Sometimes, odds are we haven't actually put a researcher on a panel in a long time, mostly because we can just share their research. But it's about the experts and trying to find them. So, ooh, that's cool, Sean. So that's me just ranting. Yeah, please hang out with us. Love, Shay.
That's great engagement in the chat. And Jessie has shared that they expect to open their inhalation room in the next few weeks in Whitehorse. That is huge. Congratulations.
I had a meeting with Jesse last week and he was telling us, and I was like so fucking proud when he told us that was going to happen. Yeah, they're doing amazing work there at Blood Ties, and I'm super proud of having Jesse as a member of ours and learning about blood ties in general and the amazing work they're doing. They're light years ahead of even Nova Scotia at this point, like seriously. I mean, so kudos to you, Jesse. It was great learning from you last week.
Amazing. And I just wanted to add a little bit to the question, just referring to our dialogues work. So in our dialogues project, we are hosting a dialogue next month that will focus on African, Caribbean, and Black communities. And CAPUD, Frank from CAPUD, has been on our steering committee and very much involved in that partnership. And our steering committee is all Black, and that was really important to us, of course. It was really important to us to have, for that dialogue in particular, note takers and facilitators that are Black, so they're in positions of leadership at the dialogue itself. And of course, these things are just one step in a long path, and I think we acknowledge that. We're also in early stages for planning a dialogue that will focus on Indigenous communities, again, using this model of having a committee made up of folks from that community to really take leadership and guide how the dialogue looks, and us at CDPC are there to make it happen. So it's been a learning process, but it's also been really exciting and really cool and really important, I think. And we hope to take everything that comes out of every dialogue forward to the federal government at the conclusion of the project in about a year. All right, so we are going to launch a poll. So just taking a few minutes to answer the questions. If you don't see your province or territory in the first question.
We're not allowed to vote. just sorry to be the kind of meeting with the panelists aren't allowed to vote.
No, not us.
Sorry, friends.
If you don't see it in the first one, it'll be in the second one. And so we'll just give everyone some time to answer the poll.
While people are doing that, can I wanted to just jump in. Susan's question is, has anyone engaged with small scale and large scale drug sellers to discuss how to distribute safe supply? My understanding is that's happened in places and spaces, mostly at local communities. And a part of that is that it's really about relationship building. I think other people in the participation room and other panelists can actually make some references if they know about some stuff that's sort of public that has answered that. You should be able to type in or respond to Susan's question, or maybe put it in the chat and she will see it. I just thought maybe that would be a good time to just do that. It's absolutely something that makes sense. They're already deeply entrenched and doing work in supply, right? And I know for sure that there are drug sellers who are interested in ensuring good product and for themselves and for their friends and family, right? And customers, obviously. I'll talk about it.
I mean, I fully know, and I think a lot of us in Canada have heard of certain groups that have been doing that. For the Drug Users Liberation Front has been doing that. I don't know that it's been emulated, but I think that as people use drugs, even though we might not do it on a wide scale, we've done it for each other, or if we share or we split, as we would call it. It's a nice way of saying micro deal, or you know, without saying that you're trafficking, right? Like we try to help each other out. I don't know of any other groups. I don't remember the beginning of the question there, Shay, but I don't know of any other like drug user groups that are doing it. But I know it's a common practice within our community and always has been. As me, especially when I was an opioid user, if somebody was sick and I had, you know, I had a like 32 milligram hydromorphone, I would split it up and give, you know, some beads out to somebody that was ill because I didn't want to see somebody else have to go through that. I don't know if I've answered your question properly, but I just tried to give a little bit of feedback from my end. And I noticed we have Q&A questions that we haven't answered either.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess another last few seconds for the poll.
It's okay. We can still go on because people can still see us and hear us if they are not done completing the poll.
Okay.
And Alexandra just made a very good point that sellers and users are often and always predominantly the same people. And that's my issue, like moving forward with decriminalization is like, how do we push this forward so that people aren't going to be upcharged to be a trafficker? Because, you know, I used to firmly be against quantities and thresholds. I've had a new resilience or like a new understanding recently, not because I want them to be, because I like firmly, I think like a kilo is good for me. Like that should be the threshold. Like I'm good with a key. Maybe some people want my more and then other people will probably say that's way too much. But the problem is if I don't, and I've never said this out loud before, so please don't hate me when I say this. I think if we don't set something, the police are going to take over and decide for us. And it's never hit me so clearly since I've been doing the Toronto decriminalization working group. And like the police are there with us and, you know, and I resisted in the task force, in the federal task force to even talk about quantities or like thresholds. But threshold right now is so precarious in this movement that I wonder, and we've seen what's happened with BC, what the 2.5 grams, which is bullshit. I mean, like, how do we move this conversation forward and move police? The police should not be involved in decriminalizing us. First of all, let's talk about that. But second to that, how do we advocate as a community, as a collective of agencies across this country to enforce that? If we don't ask for a threshold or a quantity, the police may make up their own mind and just charge us as traffickers. So I don't know. This is even a question to my fellow co-panelists, because I know Donald and I have talked at length about this in previous conversations where I was dead against thresholds, but I don't know. I've had a renewed thing that just come into my brain this last like 3 or 4 weeks. I'm like, oh shit, if we don't, they're gonna fucking charge us as like traffickers. They're just gonna upcharge us, right? So where do we set that boundary as a community that are advocating this, especially as us as CAPUD going forward with our decriminalization case?
Yeah, really, really good discussion here, and it's actually very connected to another question here from the audience. So, with the growing discussions around defunding and dismantling the police, what is your view on enforcement as it is still part of the 4 pillars strategy today?
That's a question for Donald.
It is a question for Donald. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I like your phrasing of this with the growing discussions around defunding and dismantling the police. There are discussions going on. I think the way we're framing it, and again, we're working on a statement around this. We're going through a process. Staff are drafting a statement now, and I'll give Beta a lot of credit for leading this too. She's saddled with the next draft of it, which will then go to our steering committee. And I think the way we've been framing it, and Beta, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is like, what is the role of policing in developing drug policy? So like a decriminalization is a great example. I mean, the whole point of decriminalization is to remove something harmful from people. Remove the oppressiveness of the law and the enforcement of that law. It's really not, it's not promising anything else. That in itself is a huge gain in terms of relief for people, but only if it's done right, and only if it's done with the right structures. And that's why the thresholds are becoming a pretty important part of that discussion, because of police discretion. So we want to be, you know, I think most of us agree, if you're going to start somewhere, start high and see how that works. Don't start too low, because we know countries have done that, and it's a minimal improvement, or in some cases it's actually caused more harm, with more people being arrested because the quantities are so low. So it's really complicated because it's an economic reality of what's going on in our country, in our cities, at the street level. It's a big market that people are accessing all of the time. So how to remove policing from that is one question, but and I say this in our discussion, you know, police aren't going away. I think police, it's basically trying to decide whether there's a role in the development of drug policy, because we're developing drug policy at a time where we're only looking at decriminalization, possibly decriminalization. There still will be an illegal drug market. So it's that tension between an aspirational, ideally they would have no role, because or they would have a role that would be similar to their role in alcohol, which is regulated and enforced by municipal inspectors in terms of permits and licensing and all that sort of stuff. They have a minimal role in those sorts of legal drugs. Or would it, so it's trying to find out to work with the reality that police will still be enforcing drug laws at some level, at some threshold, and to have a decriminalization that will work. In terms of your reference to the 4 pillars, I think the 4 pillars is flawed in the sense that it was too pillary, and not enough interconnection between all of the things we're talking about. And I think over the last 20 years, we've realized that it's super complex, and we need to be talking about way more than the pillars. We need to be talking about economy, income, housing, trauma, lived experience, diversity. So I think we're trying to, if we were to articulate a new drug policy for Canada, it probably wouldn't be pillars. It would be something that captures more the complexity of what we're talking about, both in terms of substance use, drug markets, and the lived experience of people who use drugs. And I mean all people who use drugs, not just people who have so-called diagnoses or use so-called problematically. It's just drugs are available to all of us all of the time, legal, illegal. So what does the new drug policy, how does the new drug policy respond to that reality? I don't know if I answered the question, but.
Yeah, I guess I want to speak to that. Okay, so as a drug user who like wouldn't be diagnosed, I guess, as like quote unquote substance use disorder, I buy an ounce of Coke every time I buy it. You want to know why? Because I like a good deal. Like I really do. You know what I mean? Like I get an ounce of Coke cheaper than if I bought like a smaller amount. So I mean, when we think about this, we think about decrim, we think about moving forward, we think about using patterns. We also have to think about buying patterns. And I think a lot of people forget about that in this conversation, that predominantly the people that we're talking about in this movement, yes, there is a minority of individuals, me at one time, with a substance use disorder. but people age out, they grow out, they can move on in their life. And then what do you do for the majority of people in the world, or like even in Canada, that use drugs that are fit with the same glove, if that makes sense. Like, you can't say because I bought an ounce that I'm trafficking. No, it's for my own consumption. Like, I'm gonna use that ounce myself. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm not selling it to anybody because I got a good deal and that's my shit, and I'm gonna take it home with me and I'll use it as I need it. And so I think that's benign to like the drug policy conversation. I've also had one of my good friends and board members texting me as we've been talking about this as well. And she was saying like a quarter of a pound of crystal meth and like 1 zip of pow and like 6 years in this crisis. And she's saying like ethical navigators, ethical substance use navigators are needed dramatically, because people don't understand using patterns. And I don't want to speak for you, Simona, but I'm deciphering this, and it's just like, you guys give away a lot of stuff there, and people need drugs and they need what they need. And it's not right for our community to have to suffer overdose or death, because the government right now is too cowardly to face the crisis that we live in. And let's be real, that's where we're at right now. The government is denying, and people, you can say I'm wrong, I feel it's government sanctioned genocide at this point, because they are allowing this crisis to continue. They know there's a poison market and they're not willing to address it. I'm not trying to take up anybody else's space. All I'm saying is I know my community has died of over 26,000 people, and there's been no urgency to come save our lives. But when COVID came, we saw how regulation, legislation, and laws changed just like that. And so when it affects regular people, so to speak, I mean, and I don't say that like being derogatory, I mean, like as the government would think, they're okay to move mountains. But when it's our community that's dying, nobody gives a shit. And that's the fucking reality that we live in. And I'm sorry for being cursed and being upset about it. I'm fucking mad about this. I'm fucking mad that I've lost friends and people I love over the years. And like, the Nova Scotia Health Authority a couple of weeks ago, I was so mad at you. Like, my friends are dying. There's that, and you know, like, it took them 2 weeks to formulate a response to me of why we weren't getting drug reports anymore. It is inexcusable for us to not have timely information. Where do we get reprieve? Isn't the government there for reprieve of our like rights, like our life, liberty, and security? And here we are dying by over 20,000 people. And where's our response? Even BC had a public health emergency. Like they actually called a state of emergency there for like what, 6 years ago, Donald? Like not that long ago. And where's the troops? Where are the people that are coming in to help us? Nobody, nothing. Go ahead, Chase, in your hand, what?
Well, so I'm that like stimulus connect annoying person who's like, absolutely, abso-fucking-lutely. And we need to get back to the questions because we actually want to consult people on something related to Stimulus Connect. So you're right. You're definitely right. But we have to ask that question because that's one of the things we promised we were going to talk about today.
Yeah, I know. I just had one of my board members texting me and I thought it was very important.
No, it's absolutely true and brilliant. Beta?
Totally. Never enough time. In particular, if you're interested on the defund topic, there was a stimulus about it a few months ago and it's on the website. So feel free to check out that resource. And thanks Natasha, thanks Donald. Really important words. I think sometimes it's like you gotta say the things. Okay, so for our audience, you are welcome to type this in the chat because we're really looking for as much input as possible. So what are some topics you'd like to see covered in a Stimulus Connect in the future? So feel free to type that out. What do you want to hear about? What do you care about? And what do you want to hear us or people like us, people not like us, talk about? Cool. Distribution solutions from Susan. Thank you. That's great.
Can I just ask, Susan, is that like harm reduction supplies? Is that naloxone? Is it information, or is it like all of those things?
Feel free to type in some clarifying words. From Sean, transness and drugs, neurodivergence and drugs. Love it. Love it. Activism from Maria. Susan offering some clarifying context, so distribution about cocaine, heroin, Tylenol, all of the drugs. Great,
Glad I asked. Yeah.
thank you for these topics. From Kareem, the role of mental health practitioners, in brackets quacks, in perpetuating the harm of prohibition and control. That is juicy, thank you. From Olivia, hearing from youth who use drugs. Thank you, Olivia. From Jesse, more on alternate models of safe supply, specifically demedicalized models. That's great, thank you. From Asaf, resource pipelines for youth organizations related to drug advocacy. Thank you. From Andre, legal rights of drug users. That's a really good one, thank you. These are all great, by the way, thank you. And from Evan, a +1 to the youth who use drugs suggestion. So getting some support for that idea. Great. I'll just give it a couple more minutes because I know this is a really important part of today's Connect. So
I had another message, sorry, Beta, from one of my board members saying like delivering safe drugs to people who use drugs. So
thank you. Thank you.
Be really cool if we could link more drug sellers with people who have drug testing. And people with like people who can test it sort of before it gets sold. So it's actually like kind of a low tech DELF model, right? Where like even in your small community, it can happen kind of at a higher level safely, right?
From Peter, raising awareness of hazard of combination opioid preparations with acetaminophen, etc., and ending this nasty practice. Thank you. Offering a little bit more space for people to share ideas for future topics, and also adding on, what panelists would you like to see and hear from at these events? Go ahead and make your suggestions there in the chat. We're also looking for keynote speakers for our conference coming up in Ottawa 2023 fall. So that could include international speakers as well. All suggestions are welcome. Here's the topic from Tara. The realities of where government money funding, safe supply programs and such is going to qualify for the funding. All the unmet needs pre this shit. So, and the quality of their programs too. Thank you. Sean is offering Sean up as a speaker and has provided an email address. Thank you for that. Good luck with med school. From Liv.
Love you, Sean. I haven't seen you for a while. I'm happy you're here with us today.
Awesome. Lots of love for Sean as a speaker. Any other suggestions for speakers at future Stimulus Connects or at our conference? And thank you for all this.
Frankie is amazing. Frankie is amazing. I love that you said Frankie. Frankie's actually been on a panel, on a Stimulus Connect panel, and has moderated for us. They're cool. Ooh.
We've got a lot going on. So Frankie, we have Simona Marsh offering to be a speaker on ethical substance use navigator. Great. Olivia suggesting Dr. O'Shea and Dr. Bodkin about their new Safer Supply program in Hamilton. Definitely a +1 for that suggestion. Awesome.
Random CSSDP facts. So Liv, I saw your note. So the Canadian Students for Sensible Drug Policy have a standard seat for all of our planning of Stimulus Connects. So they're like, we have like Sanjana is on that committee, and if Sanjana can't make it, then she connects in with the rest of the CSSDPers to see if somebody else can help us or join us. And so often that's how we're connecting into youth, recognizing that the CSSDP youth might be a little older, than some of the youth we may want on a panel about drug use or that sort of thing, because some of them are a bit, well, I think most of the CSSD peers are in university or college.
And Dr. Bogdan is like pretty fucking awesome. I've done research with her and I love her to death. She was part of our scoping review, our safe supply scoping review for beyond COVID. And yeah, she's an amazing person. So if she is here, I don't know who's there that had said that, but I love Claire Bogdan. So just had to say that out loud.
And a note from Anne Marie, if you think of someone or a topic at a later date, you can always reach out to Shay or Anne Marie and let them know. From Emmanuel, we want to see monitoring and evaluation of drugs in the African continent. And remember, Africa has no control system when it comes to monitoring. What mechanism is needed to checkmate or check the harmful abuse of drugs in Africa and Nigeria? And that's from Emmanuel. Thank you. We have a suggestion that Nasli could be a speaker.
That's like good.
On Canada's role internationally, and Nasli has really stuck to, we've dropped the ball a bit, CDPC. We used to, engaging internationally, but Nasli has really maintained a strong connection with the international stuff, and that's great. She's an encyclopedia of knowledge about the United Nations drug policy work and how difficult it is, and Canada's role in that.
That would be great. I would love to see all of these speakers. And I'm continuing to leave that open for anyone to keep contributing in the chat, your recommendations for topics and speakers. All of this will be observed and taken into consideration. I would like to ask one or two more questions depending on what we have time for. So let's do one silly one and one not silly one. Okay, what was the band that you couldn't stop listening to as a teenager?
Our Lady Peace.
What was that?
Our Lady Peace. And I'm 41 and still always listening to Our Lady Peace.
Yes.
Nice.
I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
Our Lady, oh, the question or what I said?
Yeah, your answer.
Oh, Our Lady Peace.
I don't even know who that is, I don't think. That's bad. That's bad. But yeah, I think we're the same age.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you're in the
Mine
office.
was New Kids in the Block. Mine was New Kids in the Block. That's when I was like in my early, like 12, 13, 14. Just had
I
to
was
say
more
it.
in sync at that age. At that
Oh,
age, I was
NSYNC, is that what you
into
said?
NSYNC.
I couldn't make you out. I loved NSYNC too. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I loved the boy bands. They were always great.
I want to know Donald's answer because this is kind of cassette tape land, I think.
The Rolling Stones. Come on.
Nice.
Wait a second. Did you say he was in cassette tape land? Like I was too. Like actually, when I was alive, and I don't want to say this, there was even 8 tracks still around.
No. I
when
was being
young.
polite because I didn't
Oh,
want to
okay.
say
I
8
was like,
tracks.
I'm gonna say, like, you're trying to age Donald like way too much because there was cassette tapes in my lifetime.
Okay,
Because they would like stream out and you'd have to like try and like swing them back in to get the tapes so you could hear the music.
45s that you put,
45s.
they drop down pre-cassette.
I was Katie Lang's ingenue. So related to coming out though, but I actually had to buy a second tape because I like totally, that was like my late teens. That's a great question.
Can I tell you my guilty pleasure? Celine Dion. I love Celine Dion. I love her. She's like, I've gone to like every time she's come to Halifax, I've gone to concerts. And then, so we had a person in Health Canada, Lillian Thomas. She sent out this commercial one time. It was like this extra commercial about people being able to be around each other. And it had Celine Dion singing. I was like, does this woman, is she inside my brain that she knows that like that's Celine Dion? And I know everybody's thinking I'm so fucking corny right now, but I still love Celine Dion. And that commercial made my fucking heart like just like beat extra few beats.
Some very Canadian responses from some of you. I love it. Thank you, everyone. And next question is, why did you get involved in harm reduction or drug policy, or why are you still involved in drug policy? What brings you to this work?
I don't like to be a keener, but nobody else was answering. Like, why do I do drug policy? I fell into it. Like, you know, not that I fell into it. It was like from the movement of my people. It's like what I had gone through as being a person who uses drugs, being criminalized, having my children removed violently by the state, being criminalized and spending years in prison, and like having no voice, being nothing in this world. But knowing drugs aren't what the issue is, it's the policy. It's drug policy is what the issue is. And so when I got a chance from Diane Bailey at the needle exchange, mainland needle exchange, she like, I was speaking a first voice at a presentation one time, and I got the final nerve up to and go up and walk up to her and say, if you're ever looking to hire somebody, you know, just wanted to let you know that I'm really right on the spot. She said, you're hired. And I was like, what? I was like actually shocked. And so I that's how I got into drug policy, because one, being a criminalized individual and facing the most harmful effects of the state, I knew that as somebody that had gone through that, I never wanted anybody else to, and I felt it was my duty as a person who lived through that to try and end those atrocities on my people. And then being involved with CAPUD had opened my eyes to so many other aspects that I learn every day from my board and my members. I'm amazed by their wisdom and their generosity and the way they present themselves. And so did I come into it knowingly? I came into it with righteousness to like save my community. And I don't know if I've done it yet, but I've really tried to give my heart and soul to do that. I know my board has. I know we've gone through a lot of shit. I know every single one of my board members and our members fight for our righteousness every day. And so, yeah, it wasn't something I planned. It's just something that happened.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you. And also, folks in the chat, feel free to share what brings you here, what brings you to this work. Who would like to go next? Perhaps Donald?
Sure. I think it was very simple. I just ran into, I was working in the literacy field in the 80s as part of an organization called World Literacy of Canada that supported international literacy projects. And I ended up at the Carnegie Center at the corner of Main and Hastings in Vancouver when the first overdose crisis, injection drug use crisis, HIV crisis hit British Columbia. And I was every day sort of in the middle of the drug scene at the corner of Main and Hastings, which was very intense. And on the corner, it was the major, both legal, legal drugs. You could buy any pharmaceutical product you wanted, and then heroin, cocaine, crack. And I didn't know anything about this stuff, except that I knew over the years of working there, a few years from 87 to 93, and I think it was when the chief coroner, Vince Kane, had his task force in British Columbia and did a very good paper in 1994. He went around the province, he talked to everybody, he talked to, parents, police, drug users, people on various forms of drug treatment, municipalities. He just talked to everybody, Indigenous organizations. And he wrote a really good report that basically called for reallocating money from the criminal justice system to the health system and ramping up all sorts of health and social service approaches. And in the community, we were very hopeful for that report. And he did talk about decriminalization. He recommended a commission to explore decriminalization, and he recommended that we explore looking at legal regulation. This is 1994, the chief coroner of BC, and that inspired a lot of people to get involved, and I was one of those people. The one thing, I didn't know much about the drug market, as I mentioned before. I've tried all sorts of drugs. I think alcohol is probably the hardest drug I've had. I had to leave St. John's, Newfoundland, so I could stop drinking for a while. I lived there for a couple of years, but I guess what the total patheticness of the response by everybody, the public, the city of Vancouver, the province of BC, to that report and to the situation, which deteriorated throughout the 90s. Thousands of people died, thousands of people contracted HIV, Hep C. We had a terrible health services in the community at that time. And so it was really the injustice of the whole thing. It's like you would see massive public health responsive to a hepatitis A situation in a restaurant in a downtown Vancouver. Mobilization would be overnight and immense, informing people that a staff person had Hep A at a restaurant, please get tested. And people were literally dropping dead on the corner of Main and Hastings in the street, and there was no response, zero response. So and the other one thing is I'd heard that in Europe, they had done some good things. That's all I knew. And so I decided I was going to find out what happened in Europe. And so I went to Europe and figured some stuff out and sort of started down that road. And once you meet all the people involved in this stuff, you never go back, because there's so many amazing people working so hard trying to right this big wrong.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you for that. Thank you to the folks who are sharing in the chat too, just taking a moment to really honor the loss and grief that brings a lot of folks to this work. So thank you for sharing with us. Shay, would you like to share next?
I actually shared in the chat, just because I know we have time, but you know, that's the answer. Hashtag staying. It's also helpful, it pays the bills and stuff. I absolutely have to recognize the privilege that I am living off of the war on drugs. I am exploiting that tragedy to make money and make my rent payments, right? So kind of shitty that way. And all my friends dying, that was shitty as well.
Anne-Marie, would you like to share a few words?
For me, it was having been criminalized and knowing what I've been through to try and, like Natasha, I also started at Mainline, and it was to be there for people in a way that nobody was there for me. And then, from Mainline, I went to and was at a bail house and working harm reduction in the bail house. And then Natasha found me, and coming to CAPUD was it really was, it was to, and it still is, and it'll always be to try to make those changes and try to make the world a place that I wish it could have been, right? Make it a safer place where, maybe my kids won't lose all of their friends, and maybe somebody else won't lose siblings and family members and parents, right? So just trying to do the next, keep doing the next right thing, and hopefully make the world a better place, even if, it doesn't happen in my lifetime, setting the footprint for it to happen in, the next lifetime.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much. Natasha, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm a little bit emotional. I just wanted to give a shout out to Simona and all my board members that are here supporting us today, because I love you all. And thank you for your honesty. And I'm sorry that I'm emotional right now, but I'm so proud of you all. I'm just like, I love you. And I just hope you know how proud I am of your courageousness to come here and speak so openly. And I'm sorry, I don't like crying in public today. I am, I hate it. And I just want you all to know that I love you so much.
Thank you.
Love you, Natasha.
Thank you.
I hate fucking crying in public, but my people, I love them so much. And when we're here together and I hear them speak so openly and publicly about, like, it just touches my heart in such a way that I can't. This is what makes me move on with our organization. And I fight every fucking day because we are a fucking force. And we need voices like Simona, Charlene, Anne-Marie, Marcy, like all of our people that are here. And that's what keeps me going, even though we have, like, you know, people who use drugs, we're fucked up sometimes. Like, we don't always get along. We have like disjointed conversations. But it's these times when I see, like, you know, getting a text from my board member as we're talking, and like, this is what I
de
love.
voir mes membres de mon CA qui parlent de base, c'est sûr que je sais qu'on fait la bonne chose, qu'on travaille pour nous.
This has also helped us and CDPC bring us in more members because we've had more presence, and I've gotten to know people like Andre's here today. I didn't know him previous to this, and he's an amazing individual as well. So this platform that we've had together as a collaboration has brought so much richness to our organization and to help us move forward. I just, anyway, I'm sorry that I broke down there for a second, but I love my people. And I'll stop crying now or turn my camera off, either one. Sorry.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing. And I think what's so clear is that, like, through and through commitment, and this shit comes from a very real place. And I'm just grateful to be like in orbit of all of you amazing, committed, deeply passionate people. And I learned so much from you.
Gonna turn my camera off to wipe my face off. You keep crying with everybody watching. And thank you to everybody in the chat that's saying stuff, like Jen McCrindle. Amazing work with us on the best practices. You know, Nick Boyce is another one. I've spoken with him, and many others, and Alexander's here today. I just want to give a shout out to Simona, everybody that's here today supporting CAPUD. Like, my heart is pumping. Like, I got a big heart right now for all of you for showing up today and supporting us.
Thank you. Ditto. Just want to thank everybody for all of your engagement today. Thank you for your input into the future of stimulus. If anything else comes up, please do reach out. A little housekeeping thing. At the end of this event, you'll be invited to fill out a 3-minute survey. Again, your feedback is really important. We consider it all, so please take the time, and we thank you for that. Today's recording will go up on the Stimulus website soon. And a big thank you to all of our audience here, everyone who shared and spoke up. Thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Shay, Anne-Marie. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Alexandra, Olivia, Nabila. Thank you so much. I'll pass it over. Oh, thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And
Thank you, Ida.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ada.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
No, I was asked to do the moment of silence. Alexandra, did you want to help me with that? I don't want to put you on the spot.
So we can do that. It just means, Alexandra, I need to turn off the interpretation. Is that okay? You may have to do it in both languages then. That's okay. I'll turn off the interpretation and we'll have you join us. That's okay.
I don't think we can hear you yet. Can we hear her?
Hello. Hi.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, that's really an honor. Thank you. To do the moment of silence. Well, I think it was really really high in emotions. C'était vraiment très fort en émotion. Je m'attendais pas à ça. J'ai pleuré. I was not expecting that. I cried. It was really a rich conversation. C'était vraiment une conversation très riche. Let's think about all the people we lost and that we are still losing, and just keep taking a little moment for them, and that's why we're here, and that's why we do that. Donc, je vous demanderais juste de prendre un petit moment de silence pour toutes les personnes qu'on a perdues, qu'on continue à perdre, mais c'est pour ça qu'on est ici, puis c'est pour ça qu'on continue le travail qu'on fait. Thanks, everyone. Merci.
Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate you doing that. You know I love you.